Okay, we're back with Captain D with Volume 4 of River Stories with Captain Harold DeMarrero. We started talking about his early career in the Coast Guard and the incident at Monroe City, Louisiana in 1973. And let's pick up where we left off at. Talk a little bit more about your Coast Guard career.
Well, I'd like to get back to the story about getting that barge out of Morgan City that was lodged under the bridge, the chlorine barge. Anyway, we finally agreed to have these tugs with big anchor barges. They were 5,000 horsepower tugs, two of them, and a 5,000 horsepower deep sea tug below with the anchor barge to pick up the bridge. So they picked up the bridge, and the other two had cables on it, and they pulled it up out of there. Once they got it pulled up, then one of the tugs got on each side of the barge and was starting to drop it down through the Morgan City Bridge, the railroad bridge. It was starting to come down through the channel, and here comes this yacht. And I kept motioning. I said, "Get over. Go over to the side and tie it." "No, we just want to go up through there." I said, "No, get over there on the side." And one of these guys on the back, he gives me the bird, you know. And so anyway, I said, "You take that boat over there, I'm going to ram you." And I told the coxswain, I said, "Ram him." They said, "Oh, well, all right, we're going to go over here." So they went over there and parked. And we dropped the barge on down through the bridge. And when it was clear, you know, a tug took it out and docked it. And we went back to the Coast Guard base there. And I was only a JG, Lieutenant Junior grade, so there was a lieutenant commander that was there. He was a Marine safety officer for Morgan City. I said, "I want them guys, I want you to go over and give them guys a ticket." You know, even though I was on active duty and I could have written a ticket, I know that you know, if you're going to write a ticket, you got to be there for the, you know, when they bring it to court and everything else. So he goes over and he comes back, rides back with the guys, and they dock just above the Coast Guard. He says, "Oh, we can't give these guys a ticket. They're customs officers." I said, "What do you mean you can't give them a ticket? I want them to have a ticket." And I said, "Well," I said, "you either give them a ticket or I'm going home." And he says, "Well, you can't go home. You're on active duty." And I says, "Well," he says, "what if I get them to come over and apologize to you?" I said, "Well, all right, I'll accept that." So they did. They come over and they apologized. They didn't mean it, but they apologized, you know. But anyway, we went up, and the Captain Mundy was there from New Orleans, and he says, "Good job, guys." He said, "It's time for us to all pack up and go home." And I said, "What are you talking about, going home?" I said, "Do you know how many boats are waiting to go through that bridge? There's probably 500 to 600 boats, and they're all going to start at it in every direction you can imagine." Well, he says, "Well, we can't do anything about that." He said, "What would you do? What would you do?" And I says, "Well, I would regulate traffic here the way they do at the locks. We'll let all the boats coming down the shaft ladder get through the bridge. Then we'll put a halt on them somewhere up the line. Then we'll let the ones coming up the river go up through the bridge. Then we'll let the east and westbound boats go through the intercoastal." Excuse me. He says, "Well, we can't do that. We don't have any equipment. What do you need to do something like that?" I says, "Well, I've got the guy that we buy our electronics is right here in town. I'll borrow a radio from him." So we did. And I says, "And I'll regulate the traffic through here." So anyway, I also had to regulate the bridge. That was very important, because because that bridge, a lot of times, that railroad bridge, they'd stop somebody that was coming down above the bridge because they wanted to run a train. Well, you got to be in control of all of it to do that. So I did. I started up. We hooked up the radio. We mounted an antenna on a ladder that sit outside the building. And for about 3 days, myself and this bosun chief that was there with me, we stayed on the radio and slept on the floor in this thing, and operated, and we got all the traffic back to a normal flow. Well, after the 3 days was up, I was ready to go home, and the Captain Monday called me and says, "Can you stay here a little longer?" He says, "The railroad bridge called us and said that's the most boats that ever went through his bridge without one of them hitting it." So I kept the thing on for probably another week, and then my boss called the admiral and says, "Hey, you got my executive vice president over there, and I need him to run this company over here." So anyway, I went back, but I did get something nice from the Coast Guard. I got the Coast Guard Commendation Medal. And I read just a little bit. Lieutenant Junior Grade DeMarrero is cited for meritorious achievement in the performances of duty while serving as operations officer for the chlorine barge collision at Morgan City, Louisiana on the 10th to 21st of January 1973. And then it goes on to tell the tug, immediate danger of poisonous chlorine gas, and that actually what it says is, I established a vessel traffic system in Morgan City. Well, that was all great. When I left, they closed it down. The next year, Captain Monday called me and says, "Would you go back there again during high water and set this up again?" So I did. I went back the next year, and I trained 3 aircraft control operators how it worked, how the system worked, where the stopping places were, what you had to do with the bridge. And they learned it pretty well. And then the next year, they came in with an entire base to do this. And they sat down and gave them all a medal saying that, for coming in here with no prior training and establishing a vessel traffic system, my system, in Morgan City, Louisiana. And I called these guys a couple of weeks ago. They didn't have a clue who I am. I said, "I'm the guy that thought that up, man." I don't get no respect. Felt like Rodney Dangerfield. But I guess that's the way things go.
Is there any more of your Coast Guard highlights you'd like to go over?
I got a lot more, but because I did a lot of things for the Coast Guard over the years. I was in there in the reserve about 17 years and spent a lot of that time on active duty.
All of it in Louisiana?
All my active duty was in Louisiana, except for I had to go out to Sacramento to a basic officers indoctrination school, which was wild. They used to call me the quasi Coast Guard officer. I mean, I was part riverman and part Coast Guard.
Okay, we're sitting here in Captain Harold DeMarrero's home, and it's about a museum to river boating in all of its forms. And we'll come back later sometime and take a look at some of the stuff he has here. It's truly fascinating. Thanks for coming and listening to River Stories Part 4, and we'll be back soon with Volume 5. Thank you very much for watching.